I watch my son pour the tea, and something inside me whispers, "Wrong, wrong, wrong." My hands shake as I reach for the cup he slides across the kitchen table, the same table where I fed him breakfast before school every morning for 18 years, the same table where he used to do his homework while I cooked dinner, the same wooden surface that holds 1,000 memories carved into its grain, coffee stains from rushed mornings, crayon marks from when he was 5 years old and learning to write his name, and now here we sit like strangers, like enemies, and I do not understand how we arrived at this moment. The cup is warm between my palms, and I see the way his eyes follow my movements, tracking whether I drink, measuring my compliance, calculating his success, and that voice inside grows louder with each passing second. You know this feeling, do you not? That terrible awareness when someone you love looks at you and you see calculation instead of care. When the person who called you mama now watches you like a problem to be solved. When the child you carried inside your body for 9 months, the baby you nursed through countless sleepless nights, the teenager you defended against the world, now looks at you and sees only an obstacle between himself and whatever he wants from you. My name is Margaret. I am 78 years old, and my mind is leaving me piece by piece, like a house slowly emptying of furniture, room by room, memory by memory, until sometimes I wake up and do not recognize the wallpaper I chose myself 30 years ago. Some days I wake up and remember everything with painful clarity, every moment of my life arranged in perfect chronological order, like photographs in an album I can flip through at will. Other days I wander my own hallways lost and frightened, calling for my husband who has been dead for 6 years, though I forget this fact more often than I remember it. And each time I remember it again, the grief hits me fresh and raw, as if I am learning of his death for the first time. I have lived through his funeral 100 times in my fractured memory, each time the shock and pain as devastating as the original moment. But today, this morning, right now in this moment, I am sharp. I am present. I am completely myself, the way I used to be before the disease started erasing me. And I know with absolute certainty that my son is trying to hurt me. The hearing is in 2 hours. The hearing that will decide whether I keep my home, my independence, my life as I know it. Everything that makes me still Margaret instead of just another confused elderly woman warehoused in a facility where strangers will decide when I eat and sleep and bathe. The hearing where my son will try to convince a judge that I am incompetent, that I need to be placed in a facility, that my assets need to be under his control for my own protection, though we both know protection has nothing to do with it. He has been planning this for months, maybe longer. I know because I found the paperwork hidden in his old bedroom, the one he moved back into 6 months ago, claiming he wanted to help me, to take care of me in my declining years, to make sure I was safe and supported. He said all the right things. He painted himself as the devoted son coming home to care for his aging mother. And I wanted so desperately to believe him because the alternative was too painful to consider, that my only child, the person I loved more than my own life, saw me as nothing more than a bank account with a heartbeat. I have Alzheimer's disease. The doctor told me 2 years ago, spoke the words gently like they were made of glass that might cut me, sat across from me in his sterile office with his sympathetic eyes and his careful explanations about plaques and tangles and neurodegeneration. Some days the disease is a whisper in the background of my thoughts, barely noticeable, just a small stumble over a word or a momentary confusion about what day it is. Other days it is a scream that drowns out everything else, a roaring chaos inside my skull where nothing makes sense, and I cannot find my way back to myself no matter how hard I try. But I am not gone yet. I am not empty. I am not a shell or a husk or whatever diminishing words people use to describe those of us whose minds are failing. I am still here, still Margaret, still the woman who raised this boy alone after his father walked out when he was 3 years old, still the woman who worked 2 jobs to pay for his college education because I wanted him to have opportunities I never had, still the woman who sat up with him through every illness and celebrated every achievement and loved him with a ferocity that terrified me sometimes, because what if something happened to him? What would I do? How would I survive? I am still the woman who deserves dignity and choice and the right to decide my own fate, and I will not let him do this. I will not let him drug me and parade me before a judge like a broken thing, like proof of his claims, like evidence that I am no longer a person but a problem that needs to be managed and controlled and locked away. He thinks I do not notice, but I do. I notice everything when my mind allows it, when the fog lifts, and I can see clearly again. I noticed how he started asking about my finances 6 months ago. Casual questions that felt sharp underneath, questions about my savings and my investments and my life insurance policy. I noticed how he began inviting himself to my doctor appointments, taking notes in a little leather notebook, recording conversations on his phone, asking the doctor questions as if I was not sitting right there capable of asking my own questions. I noticed how he started talking about me in third person, even when I was sitting right there in the room, asking the doctor what we should do about Mother's condition, as if I could not speak for myself, as if the disease had already stolen my voice along with my memory. And I noticed this morning when he was making the tea, the way he turned his body to block my view, the quick motion of his hand reaching into his pocket, the tiny sound of something small and hard dropping into liquid and dissolving. I noticed all of it, because today is a good day, and on good days, I am still sharp enough to see the truth even when people think I cannot. Before you think I am paranoid, before you dismiss this as the confusion of a diseased mind creating conspiracies where none exist, let me tell you what I did last week. I went through his room while he was at work, moved through it methodically like a detective, even though my hands were shaking and my heart was pounding, because what kind of mother searches her own son's belongings? What kind of woman has so little trust in her own child? But I did it anyway, because something was wrong and I needed to know. I found the pills hidden in his sock drawer, tucked inside a balled-up pair of athletic socks, like he was a teenager hiding contraband from his parents. Small white tablets in an unlabeled bottle, maybe 30 or 40 of them, enough to dose someone many times over. I stood there in his childhood bedroom holding that bottle and remembering him at 6 years old, showing me the rock collection he kept in this same dresser, him at 12 organizing his baseball cards in these same drawers, him at 16 hiding the love letters from his first girlfriend in this same space, and now he was hiding pills meant to incapacitate his own mother. I looked them up on the computer during one of my clear moments, sat at the desk in my study and typed the imprint numbers into the search bar with trembling fingers, had to type them 3 times because my hands were shaking so badly. Sedatives, strong ones, the kind prescribed for severe anxiety or insomnia, the kind that would make me drowsy and confused, and exactly the kind of incompetent he is trying to prove I am. The kind that would make me slur my words and lose my train of thought, and seem like someone who cannot possibly make her own decisions. The kind that would give him exactly what he needs to take everything from me. I lift the cup to my lips, but do not drink. I watch him over the rim, study his face for any sign of guilt or hesitation or second thoughts. He is 42 years old, and somewhere along the way he became a stranger. Or perhaps he was always this person, and I loved him too much to see it, blinded by maternal devotion to the truth of who he really was underneath all my hopes for him. His eyes are on his phone, scrolling through something, but I know he is watching me in his peripheral vision, aware of every movement I make, waiting, checking, making sure I consume what he has prepared. The tea smells like chamomile, my favorite, the scent reminding me of countless quiet evenings sitting on my back porch watching the sunset with a warm cup in my hands. He knows what I like. He knows chamomile soothes me. He knows I trust this familiar comfort. And he is using that knowledge as a weapon, turning my own preferences and habits against me in the most intimate betrayal I can imagine. If you are watching this, if you have found yourself in a similar situation, if someone you love has looked at you and seen only inconvenience or opportunity, or dollar signs instead of a human being who deserves respect, then you understand this pain in ways that cannot be explained to those who have not lived it. You understand what it feels like when family becomes something you fear instead of something that protects you. When the people who should be your advocates, who should be fighting for your well-being and your rights, become your adversaries fighting for control of your assets and your autonomy. When you realize you are completely alone in a battle you never wanted to fight, never imagined you would have to fight, certainly never thought you would be fighting against your own flesh and blood. And if you are caring for someone with Alzheimer's, if you are watching a mind dissolve day by day and wondering how to do right by someone when doing right feels impossible, and every choice seems wrong in some way, then you carry a different weight, but an equally heavy one. You are exhausted from the constant vigilance, the repeated explanations, the same questions answered 100 times, the fear of what comes next, the grief of watching someone disappear while they are still sitting right in front of you. This disease destroys everyone it touches in different ways, victims and caregivers alike, and there is no winning, only surviving. The months leading up to this moment have been a slow unraveling of everything I thought I knew about my son, and my life, and my future. It started small. So small, I almost missed it. He would correct me when I told stories, insisting I had the details wrong even when I was certain I remembered correctly. He would sigh heavily when I asked questions, making me feel stupid and burdensome for needing clarification. He would take over tasks I was still perfectly capable of doing myself, like paying bills or managing appointments, claiming he was just trying to help, but really establishing a pattern of dependence that he could later point to as evidence of my incapacity. Each small erosion of my autonomy felt minor in the moment, but together, they built into something terrible and deliberate. I started finding legal documents on the printer, papers about conservatorship and power of attorney and guardianship that I was never shown, never asked to sign, never even told about. When I confronted him, he said he was just exploring options, just making sure we had a plan for the future, just being responsible. But his eyes would not meet mine when he said it, and I knew he was lying. I knew he had already made his decision about my future and was just waiting for the right moment to execute his plan. I set the cup down gently. My son looks up. His expression is pleasant, concerned, the mask he has perfected over these months. "Mom," he says, "you need to drink your tea. You look tired. You need your strength for today." His voice is so kind, so caring. And if I did not know what I know, if I had not found those pills, if I was having one of my bad days where my mind is full of fog and fear, I would believe him. I would trust him. I would drink the poison he has prepared wrapped in familiar comfort. Let me tell you about the woman I used to be before this disease started stealing pieces of me. I was a high school English teacher for 35 years. I taught Shakespeare and Steinbeck and Morrison to generations of teenagers who thought they hated reading until I showed them the power of words to transform lives. I was good at my job. No, I was exceptional at it. I won Teacher of the Year 3 times. Former students would write to me years later telling me how I changed their trajectory, how I made them believe in themselves, how a book I recommended or a comment I made on their essay opened up possibilities they never knew existed. I was sharp and competent and respected. I commanded classrooms with confidence. I could recite entire passages of literature from memory, and now I sometimes cannot remember if I ate breakfast or what day of the week it is, or the name of the neighbor I have known for 20 years. The contrast between who I was and who I am becoming is so painful I sometimes cannot breathe when I think about it. My son watched me at the height of my powers, learned from my strength and intelligence, benefited from the reputation I built and the salary I earned, and now he watches me stumble and forget and searches desperately for ways to use my decline against me. I think about my husband during moments like this. Robert would never have allowed this to happen. He would have protected me, defended me, stood between me and anyone who tried to take advantage of my vulnerability. But Robert is gone, and has been gone for 6 years, though I have to remind myself of this constantly because sometimes I wake up reaching for him, calling his name, expecting to find him in the kitchen making coffee like he did every morning of our 42-year marriage. His death broke something in me that never healed, created a fracture through which the Alzheimer's poured in like water through a crack in a dam. The doctor says there is no causal relationship between grief and dementia, but I know better. I know that losing Robert weakened me in ways that made me susceptible to this disease. I know that part of my mind simply gave up when he died, stopped fighting to stay organized and present and intact. And my son knows this too. He knows I have been lost without his father. He knows I have been looking for someone to lean on, someone to trust, someone to help me navigate this frightening new reality where my own mind cannot be relied upon. And he has positioned himself as that person while simultaneously working to destroy me. The betrayal is so complete, so calculated, so utterly without conscience that I almost cannot process it. This is my child, the baby I grew inside my body, the infant I nursed and rocked and sang to in the middle of the night, the toddler whose every scraped knee I kissed better, the child whose every achievement filled me with pride beyond measure. How did that child become this man who wants to drug me and lock me away and steal everything I have left? But I am having a good day, a clear day, a day where I am still Margaret, still myself, still capable of fighting. You have been fighting too, have you not? Fighting to be believed. Fighting to maintain your dignity when everyone around you sees only your limitations. Fighting against the assumption that because you forget names sometimes, or lose track of time, or ask the same questions, you have lost your right to be treated as a full human being with agency and choice. I see you. I know you. And I need you to know you are not alone in this battle. There are others of us scattered across the world, sitting at kitchen tables with our own poisoned cups, weighing our options, deciding whether to fight or surrender. I need to ask you something right now, something important. If you have ever felt invisible because of your diagnosis, if you have ever been dismissed or patronized or treated like a child instead of the capable adult you still are, if you have ever fought to maintain your dignity when everyone around you wanted to take it from you, I need you to do something for me and for everyone else watching who feels the same way. Go to the comments right now and write this exact phrase. I choose to believe myself. Just those 5 words. I choose to believe myself. Because that is what this is really about, is it not? Choosing to trust your own mind even when it fails you sometimes. Choosing to believe your own perceptions even when others question them. Choosing to fight for your right to be heard and believed and respected. When you write those words in the comments, you are not just validating your own experience. You are creating a space where others can see they are not alone. You are building a community of people who refuse to be erased or silenced or dismissed. You are telling everyone who reads your comment that they too have the right to believe in themselves, to trust themselves, to fight for themselves. So please, pause this video for just a moment and write those words. I choose to believe myself. Let us fill these comments with that declaration. Let us remind each other and ourselves that we matter, that our voices matter, that our choices matter even when our minds betray us. This is how we survive this disease, by supporting each other, by believing each other, by refusing to disappear. I have a plan, and it came to me last night in the dark, quiet hours when sleep refused to come, and my mind was racing with a clarity that felt almost supernatural after so many days of fog and confusion. I thought about every detective story I ever consumed, every mystery I ever solved alongside fictional investigators, every clever plot twist I ever admired, and I remembered a scene from an old film noir, something with Humphrey Bogart maybe, where someone switches drinks to turn a poisoner's trap back on them. It seemed impossible, too risky, too dependent on split-second timing and nerves of steel. But what choice did I have? Let him drug me? Go to that hearing sedated and confused and exactly as incompetent as he claims I am? Watch a judge strip away my rights based on evidence my own son manufactured? No. I would rather die trying to save myself than surrender without resistance. So I formulated a plan during those sleepless hours, rehearsed it in my mind 100 times, visualized every movement, every gesture, every word. I would need to create a distraction. I would need to move fast. I would need to trust my coordination, even though my hands shake and my reflexes are not what they once were. And I would need to be willing to do something that might harm my own child, which goes against every maternal instinct I possess, but seems necessary for my survival. I reach for the cup again, and this time I see relief flash across my son's face, like sunlight breaking through clouds. He thinks he has won. He thinks I am compliant, confused, easy to manipulate, already beaten, and maybe that is what I have trained him to believe by calling him when I cannot find my keys, by asking him the same question 5 times in an hour, by needing help with the television remote or the thermostat or other simple tasks that used to be automatic. I have shown him my weakness, and he has decided to exploit it rather than protect it, to weaponize it rather than support me through it. This is what breaks my heart more than the forgetting itself. Not that my mind is failing me, but that my son's compassion has already died, if it ever existed at all. Maybe I am just now seeing what was always there. Maybe the disease has stripped away my illusions along with my memories. Maybe I loved an idea of my son more than I ever loved the reality of who he actually was. I lift the cup with both hands, because they are shaking too badly to trust just one, and in the same motion, I let myself stumble slightly in my chair, let my elbow knock hard against his cup, sitting just inches from mine on the smooth wooden table we have shared thousands of meals at over the years. The cups collide with a sharp crack of ceramic against ceramic that seems impossibly loud in the quiet kitchen. Tea sloshes everywhere, spreading in dark amber puddles across the table, dripping onto the floor, spattering my sleeve. My son jumps up so fast his chair tips backward, clattering against the kitchen counter. He grabs napkins from the holder with jerky, annoyed movements, his jaw tight with frustration at my clumsiness, my inability to do even simple things anymore without making a mess. "Mom?" he says with that particular tone of strained patience that makes me feel about 6 inches tall. "You need to be more careful." And while he is bent over the table wiping up the spilled tea, while his attention is completely absorbed in cleaning up my mess and he is not looking at me, not watching me, not tracking my movements, I do it. I switch our cups. Mine goes where his was on his side of the table. His goes where mine was on my side. It takes 2 seconds, maybe 3. My hands move with a sureness that surprises me, muscle memory from decades of setting tables and clearing dishes taking over when my conscious mind threatens to freeze with terror, and it is done. The trap is reversed. The poisoned cup now sits in front of the poisoner. My heart hammers so hard I think he must hear it pounding in my chest like a drum. My hands shake worse than usual as I dab at the spilled tea with a napkin, trying to appear helpful while my mind screams with what I have just done. He sits back down with a heavy sigh, annoyed at the mess, at my clumsiness, at everything about me that requires his attention when he clearly wants to be anywhere else. He reaches for his cup without looking at it, without any awareness that it is not the same cup he prepared so carefully earlier, the cup that was mine, the cup that he poisoned with sedatives meant to render me helpless. And I reach for what was his with trembling fingers, the clean, safe cup, the one without drugs dissolved in the chamomile tea. We both drink, and I have to fight to keep my face neutral, to not show the terror and triumph warring inside me. The tea is sweet and warm and untainted going down my throat. I watch my son over the rim of my cup, and I feel something fierce and bright burning in my chest like a star. I am not defeated. I am not helpless. I am not the confused old woman he needs me to be to justify what he is planning to do. Subscribe to this channel, please, if these words are reaching something deep inside you, if you recognize yourself in this story, even though the details might be different. If you are fighting your own battles with dignity and memory, and family members who should love you, but have somehow learned to see you as a burden instead of a blessing, as a problem instead of a person. We need each other desperately in this journey through the fog and the fear and the constant erosion of who we are. Every new video I share here is another story, another moment of truth pulled from the darkness, another reminder that we are still here, still fighting, still deserving of respect and autonomy, and the basic human dignity of being believed when we speak. You are not alone in this, even when it feels like the loneliest experience in the world. When you click that subscribe button, when you turn on notifications, you are joining a community of people who truly understand what it means to fight for your right to exist on your own terms. People who know that a failing memory does not equal a failing worth. People who refuse to disappear quietly just because society would prefer we vanish with our minds. Let this channel be the place where you find comfort and solidarity and stories that remind you that you matter, that your struggle is real and valid, that you deserve to be believed and protected and loved exactly as you are, confusion and all. We are building something here, a space where those of us living with dementia or caring for someone with dementia can tell the truth about what that really looks like without sanitizing it or making it palatable or pretending it is anything other than the brutal, difficult, terrifying experience it actually is. 30 minutes pass like 30 hours. We sit in silence that feels heavy and oppressive, filled with everything we are not saying to each other. He checks his phone obsessively, scrolling through messages or emails or whatever occupies his attention while he waits for the drugs to take effect in me. I fold my napkin into smaller and smaller squares, a nervous habit from childhood that resurfaces when I am anxious, my fingers working automatically while my mind races with what I have done and what might happen next, and whether I have just saved myself or condemned myself to something worse than what he was planning. The kitchen clock ticks loud in the quiet, each second an eternity. Outside, a bird sings its morning song, completely unaware that inside this house, a mother and son are locked in a battle that might destroy them both. Everything is normal, and nothing is normal. The sunlight streams through the window, casting familiar patterns on the floor. The refrigerator hums its usual hum. The house settles and creaks the way it always does. But underneath the ordinary surface, something terrible is unfolding. I finish my tea slowly, making a show of drinking it all so he will believe his plan is working. He finishes his without seeming to notice anything wrong with it, and I watch for signs of the sedatives taking hold but see nothing yet, and doubt begins to creep in like cold water rising. Maybe I was wrong about everything. Maybe I am paranoid. Maybe the disease has progressed further than I thought, and I am creating conspiracies where none exist, seeing threats that are not real, turning my son into a villain when he is only trying to help me. Doubt creeps in like cold water rising, but then I see it, and my heart stops in my chest. A slight glaze over his eyes like a film has been pulled across them. A small, confused shake of his head as if trying to clear cobwebs. He blinks slowly, deliberately, each blink taking longer than the last, like his eyelids have gotten impossibly heavy. He puts his phone down on the table and his hand misses the edge, the phone clattering to the floor with a sharp crack that makes us both jump. When he bends to pick it up, he moves like someone underwater, everything slow and effortful and uncoordinated, his movements losing their usual precision. "Mom?" he says, and his voice sounds thick and strange, words forming slowly like his tongue has gotten clumsy in his mouth. I feel strange. Do you feel strange? His eyes try to focus on me but cannot quite manage it. There is confusion there and the beginning of fear as he realizes something is very wrong with him. I tell him I feel fine, which is both true and a lie. I tell him maybe he should sit down, rest a bit before we have to leave for the courthouse. My voice calm and concerned like any mother's would be for her unwell child, even as satisfaction courses through me like electricity. The irony tastes better than the tea ever could. He tries to stand up and staggers, his legs not cooperating with what his brain is telling them to do. His chair scrapes loud against the floor as he catches himself on the edge of the table. I'm around to his side before I consciously decide to move, my hands on his arm, steadying him even though he planned to destroy me, even though he was willing to drug his own mother to steal her life, and her money, and her freedom from her. Even though everything he has done in these past months has been calculated to hurt me, even now, even knowing what I know, I cannot stop being his mother, cannot stop the instinct to catch him when he falls, to comfort him when he is in distress, to protect him even from consequences he brought on himself. This is what he has counted on all along, I think with bitter clarity. This love that persists even when it should not. This maternal bond that he has weaponized against me, knowing I would never truly hurt him, never abandon him, never stop loving him no matter what he did. And he is right. God help me, he is right. Because even as I help him toward the door, even as I feel vindicated in my paranoia and justified in my actions, part of me wants to call an ambulance, wants to undo what I have done, wants to save him from himself and from me. We need to go, I tell him with a firmness in my voice I did not know I still possessed. The hearing is in an hour. We cannot be late. We must not give the judge any reason to rule against me by not showing up or appearing disrespectful of the court's time. He nods, but his head lolls dangerously on his neck, and I can see him fighting the heaviness pulling him down, fighting the same drugs he carefully measured out for me, fighting to stay conscious and aware and in control even as control slips further and further from his grasp. I help him out to the car in the garage, his weight heavy against my side, and settle him into the passenger seat where he slumps against the window. I drive because he clearly cannot, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turn white. My license expired 2 months ago, and I have not renewed it because I know my reflexes are not what they were. Know that I sometimes forget where I am going mid-journey. Know that I get confused by construction detours or unfamiliar intersections. Know that I am objectively a danger behind the wheel. But today I drive anyway, because I have absolutely no other choice. Today, I navigate familiar streets with white-knuckle determination, willing my mind to stay clear for just a few more hours, begging my memory to hold the route from my house to the courthouse that I have driven hundreds of times over the years. I drive past the library where I used to take my son for story time when he was small, past the park where I pushed him on swings, past the ice cream shop where we celebrated his good report cards. Every landmark is a memory of when things were different, when he was innocent and I was whole, and we loved each other in uncomplicated ways. And now I am driving him drugged and semi-conscious to a courthouse where the truth of what is between us will be revealed to strangers who will judge us both. At the courthouse, I help my son from the car, his arm over my shoulders, his feet dragging and stumbling on the pavement. A woman passing by gives us a sympathetic look, her expression soft with compassion, probably thinking what a good son to accompany his ailing mother to what must be a difficult appointment, not knowing the truth is exactly inverted, not knowing that the old woman is holding up the young man, not knowing that the person who looks frail and vulnerable is actually the strong one in this pairing. We make our way through security and the metal detectors, the whole process taking forever as my son fumbles with his keys and phone and wallet, dropping things, moving in slow motion. The bailiff watches us with concern and asks if everything is all right, his eyes moving between me standing steady and straight, and my son who can barely walk unassisted. My son mumbles something incoherent that might be yes or might be nonsense. I smile bright and say he is not feeling well this morning, but insisted on being here to support me through this difficult hearing. Wanted to make sure his mother had family by her side during such an important proceeding. The explanation sounds plausible and kind, and the bailiff nods and waves us through even as his eyes linger on my son with obvious worry. In the courtroom, I settle my son in a chair in the front row, and he slumps heavily against the wall, his head lolling, his eyes glazed and unfocused. His lawyer arrives precisely on time, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing a sharp suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. She takes one look at her client, and panic flashes across her carefully maintained professional features. She rushes over and asks in a sharp whisper what happened. What is wrong with him? Why does he look like he has been drugged? I explain in my most concerned motherly voice that he felt ill this morning, complained of nausea and dizziness, but wanted to be here anyway because he cares so much about these proceedings, about making sure his mother gets the care she needs. I make it sound noble. I make it sound like he is making a sacrifice for my well-being, and the lawyer does not look convinced. But what can she do? Her client is barely conscious. She cannot postpone based on nothing more than his sudden mysterious illness. She has no proof of anything untoward. And the judge is entering now, the bailiff calling us to rise, and the hearing must proceed whether my son is alert enough to participate or not. The judge, a woman perhaps 60 years old with steel gray hair pulled back severely and sharp intelligent eyes that miss nothing, takes in the entire scene with obvious confusion and concern. She looks at my son slumped and semi-conscious. She looks at me standing straight and alert. She looks at the lawyers arrayed on both sides. She looks at the paperwork in front of her that paints me as incompetent and my son as my necessary savior. And I can see her trying to reconcile what the documents claim with what her own eyes are showing her. She asks if we are ready to proceed. My son's lawyer requests a postponement given her client's sudden illness, arguing that he has a right to be present and coherent during these proceedings. The judge looks at my son again, then looks at me. She asks me directly in a clear, firm voice how I am feeling today, if I understand what is happening, if I am capable of participating. I tell her I feel clear and present and ready to address the matters at hand. I tell her I have Alzheimer's disease, but today is a good day, and I am capable of speaking for myself, of defending myself, of making my own case for why I should retain my autonomy. She nods slowly, her expression thoughtful. She asks if I understand what this hearing is about. I tell her my son is trying to have me declared incompetent so he can take control of my estate and place me in a facility against my will. I tell her I understand his concerns, but I do not share them. I tell her I have plans in place for my care, and I want to remain in my own home for as long as I safely can. She asks if I want a conservatorship. I tell her absolutely not. My voice does not waver. My words come out clear and strong, and I can see her reassessing everything in this moment. The proceedings unfold like a strange dream, like something happening to someone else that I am watching from a great distance. My son's lawyer tries valiantly to present her case, despite her key witness being semi-conscious and unable to corroborate anything she is saying. She has reports from doctors detailing my cognitive decline, testimonies from neighbors about times they found me confused, evidence of missed appointments and forgotten conversations and all the myriad ways my mind has been failing me. All true, all real, all documented with clinical precision. But I am here right now in this courtroom, present, answering questions clearly, demonstrating in real time that I still have capacity, even if that capacity comes and goes like the tide. The judge asks me about my care plan, and I tell her in detail about the home health aide who visits 3 times a week to help with medication management and cleaning. I tell her about the neighbor who checks on me daily and has a key in case of emergencies. I tell her about the systems I have put in place, the notes I write to myself, the alarms I set, all the ways I have adapted to my limitations while still maintaining my independence. I tell her I want to stay in my home for as long as I safely can, and that I have earned the right to make that choice for myself. And I can see her listening, really listening, weighing what I am saying against what the paperwork claims. Then my son tries to speak, and everything changes. He pushes himself up from his chair with obvious effort, swaying on his feet like a drunk, and begins to address the judge in a slurred voice that makes him sound exactly like he wanted me to sound. "Your Honor," he says, the words coming out thick and slow. "My mother cannot take care of herself. She is a danger to herself and others. She needs help. She needs to be somewhere safe where professionals can care for her properly." But his words come out wrong, too slow, too confused, contradicted entirely by his own condition. The judge asks him to sit down, her voice sharp with concern and maybe suspicion. He does not sit down. He takes a step forward, trying to make his point, trying to convince her, trying to salvage his case, and his legs buckle underneath him like his bones have turned to water. He collapses right there in the middle of the courtroom, crumples to the floor in front of everyone with a heavy thud that echoes in the shocked silence. His lawyer screams. Someone gasps. The bailiff rushes forward. Chaos erupts instantly. The bailiff calls for medical assistance into his radio with urgent professional efficiency. My son's lawyer kneels beside him, her expensive suit forgotten as she checks if he is breathing, if his heart is beating. Other people in the courtroom crowd forward trying to help or just trying to see what happened. The judge suspends the proceedings with a sharp bang of her gavel and orders everyone to step back and give him space. Paramedics arrive within minutes that feel like hours, rushing into the courtroom with equipment and confidence and questions. They check his vital signs, shine lights in his eyes, ask what happened, look confused and concerned by his symptoms which do not quite fit any obvious diagnosis. I stand off to the side with my purse clutched in both hands like a shield, watching my son be loaded onto a stretcher, watching strangers work on him, watching the consequence of my actions unfold in real time. Someone asks me if I know what might have caused this sudden collapse. I say I do not know, that he seemed fine this morning, that he drank his tea and then started feeling unwell, that maybe he is coming down with something, or maybe the stress of today got to him. All technically true, all carefully worded to avoid an outright lie while concealing the larger truth. I am good at this kind of selective honesty after years of hiding my confusion, my memory lapses, my fear that I am disappearing. You learn to present the version of reality that serves you best when your own mind can no longer be trusted to present reality accurately. At the hospital, they pump my son's stomach, a violent, invasive procedure that I watch through a small window in the emergency room door because no one thinks to keep the elderly, confused mother away from seeing what is being done to save her child. They find the sedatives dissolved and half digested in the contents of his stomach. They find exactly what he put there himself, what he intended for me. The doctor asks him what he took and why, speaks slowly and clearly like you do with someone who might not understand. In his drugged confusion, my son tells them he did not take anything, that the pills were for his mother, that she was supposed to drink them in her tea so she would be properly sedated for the hearing, so she would present as incompetent, so the judge would see what he needed the judge to see. The words tumble out of him without filter, without calculation, the drug stripping away his careful pretense and leaving only raw truth. The nurse who hears this confession looks at me with sudden sharp attention, her expression shifting from sympathy to something harder and more assessing. I meet her gaze and do not flinch, do not look away. Let her see that I am not shocked by this revelation. She asks to speak with me privately, and I follow her to a small consultation room that smells of disinfectant and old coffee. In that sterile little room, she asks me what really happened this morning, tells me she needs to know the truth for my son's treatment and for my own safety, and I tell her everything about finding the pills weeks ago hidden in his sock drawer, about researching what they were and what they would do, about watching him doctor my tea this morning while he thought I was not paying attention, about switching the cups during the distraction of the spilled tea, about driving him to the courthouse knowing what I had done, about standing in that courtroom watching my trap work exactly as I hoped it would. I tell her all of it in a calm, clear voice while my hands shake and my heart races because saying it out loud makes it real, in a way it was not before. She listens without interrupting, her face carefully neutral, taking notes on a small pad. When I finish, she is quiet for a long moment, just looking at me like she is trying to see past my wrinkled face and white hair and obvious frailty to understand who I really am underneath. Then she asks if I want to file a report against my son, if I want to press charges for attempted drugging, for elder abuse, for conspiracy to commit fraud. The questions hang in the air between us, heavy with implications. She is quiet for a long moment. Then she asks if I want to file a report. I think about this question from every angle, turn it over in my mind like a stone I am examining for flaws, about pressing charges against my own son, about the scandal that would follow, the news stories, the family shame exposed for everyone to see, about the pain it would cause and the fracture that can never be repaired once you accuse your own child of trying to harm you in such a calculated, premeditated way. I think about the fact that he tried to drug me, tried to steal my autonomy, tried to lock me away for his own gain, tried to rob me of the last few years I have where I am still myself at least some of the time. He planned it carefully over months, hid pills, prepared poisoned tea, was willing to parade me sedated and confused in front of a judge to get what he wanted. And I think about the fact that he is still my son, still the baby I held against my chest, feeling his heartbeat sync with mine, still the child I rocked to sleep singing lullabies in the dark, still the teenager I stayed up worried sick about when he missed curfew, still the young man whose college graduation made me cry with pride and joy. How do you reconcile those two truths? How do you hold both the love and the betrayal in your heart at the same time without breaking apart? I tell the nurse I want him to get help, psychiatric help, counseling, whatever he needs to address whatever is broken inside him that made him capable of this. I tell her I want a restraining order that keeps him away from me, away from my home, away from my medical care, away from my finances. I tell her I want him nowhere near my life going forward, but I do not want him arrested, do not want him to have a criminal record, do not want to destroy what is left of his future, even though he was willing to destroy mine. She nods like she understands, even though I am not sure I understand myself, not sure if I am being compassionate or just weak, not sure if protecting him now after what he did makes me loving or makes me a fool. The judge reconvenes the hearing 3 days later in the same courtroom that now feels haunted by what happened here last time. My son is not present, still recovering in the hospital under psychiatric observation, still processing what he did and what was done to him. His lawyer has filed a motion to withdraw from the case, stating conflict of interest and personal reasons, unwilling to continue representing someone who confessed to trying to drug his elderly mother. I sit alone at the defendant's table with my own lawyer beside me, a kind woman named Patricia whom I hired with money I had hidden in my bedroom, cash I had been slowly saving and hiding for years in case of emergency. Money my son did not know about, because I learned long ago to keep some resources secret and separate. The judge reviews everything that has happened, reads through the medical reports from the hospital, the statements from the nurse who interviewed me, the psychiatric evaluation of my son. She asks me again about my wishes, gives me the opportunity to speak for myself without anyone interrupting or interpreting or talking over me. I tell her I want to remain in my home and make my own choices for as long as I am able. I tell her I understand I will need increasing help as the disease progresses, but I want that help to support my autonomy, not replace it. I tell her I want dignity in my decline, want to be treated as a person who still has value and rights, even when I am confused, want decisions made with me rather than for me for as long as possible. She listens, and I can see respect in her eyes, something I have not seen in a long time from people in positions of authority. She grants my request. She denies my son's petition for conservatorship. She suggests I establish a medical directive with a neutral third party, someone not family, to make decisions if and when I become truly incapacitated. I agree to all of it, relief washing over me so powerfully I almost cannot breathe. Now here is what you need to understand, the part that changes everything you think you know about this story. Here is where the narrative twists, and you see the truth I have been hiding even from myself, the truth that makes everything uncertain and terrifying in ways that go beyond what my son did or what I did in response. When I got home from that hearing, victorious and exhausted and emotionally wrung out, I found a note on my kitchen table waiting for me, in my own handwriting, shaky, but definitely mine, the same loops and slants I have made for 78 years. A note I do not remember writing. It said I switched the cups. It listed the date, this morning's date. It described my plan in detail, the fake stumble, the spilled tea, the quick exchange of cups. And at the bottom, in letters pressed hard enough to nearly tear through the paper, it said, "If you are reading this, you have forgotten again, but you did the right thing. Trust yourself, believe in yourself. You saved yourself today." The note was dated from this morning, but I have no memory of writing it. No memory of sitting at this table with a pen. No memory of forming these words. but it is absolutely my handwriting and the details are too specific, too accurate, for it to be anything other than something I wrote to my future self, knowing I might forget, knowing the confusion might come, and I would need proof that what happened was real. I have written myself dozens of these notes over the past 2 years since my diagnosis. Hundreds, maybe. I find them everywhere, tucked into books, taped to mirrors, folded in my wallet, instructions for when my mind goes dark and I cannot remember what is real, reminders of appointments, warnings about people I cannot trust, reassurances about things I accomplished that I might not remember accomplishing. They are my lifeline to continuity, my way of maintaining a coherent narrative when my memory fractures and rearranges itself without my permission. And what I must tell you now, what I must confess because honesty matters even when the truth is unbearable, is that I do not know if my son really tried to drug me, or if my paranoid diseased mind invented the entire conspiracy out of fear and confusion. I do not know if I really found pills in his drawer, or if I imagined them, hallucinated them, created a memory of finding them to justify suspicions that had no basis in reality. I do not know if I switched the cups as a brilliant defensive maneuver, or if I accidentally poisoned my son while confused about which cup was which, and then created an elaborate justification my conscious mind could accept. I do not know what is real anymore, and that is the essential horror of this disease. The only thing I know for certain is that my son collapsed in front of a judge after drinking from my cup, and that I felt relief instead of horror when it happened. Whether that relief was justified or monstrous, I cannot say. The Alzheimer's makes me unreliable in ways that go far beyond simple forgetfulness. It makes my testimony questionable. It makes every memory suspect, every perception potentially false, every certainty crumble under examination. And I have used this, weaponized my own disability against my son's attempt to weaponize it against me, turned my unreliability into a shield and a sword simultaneously. Or I have committed a terrible crime against an innocent man who was only trying to help me and convinced myself through elaborate mental gymnastics that it was self-defense. Or the truth is somewhere in between these extremes, tangled in the spaces between memory and delusion, between clarity and confusion, between what actually happened and what I needed to believe happened. I will never know with absolute certainty, and neither will you. And that is what makes this disease so uniquely devastating. Not just that you lose your memories, but that you lose your ability to trust yourself completely, to know what is real, to separate fact from fear from fantasy, to be certain of anything at all, including your own motivations and actions. The ground beneath you is always shifting, always unreliable, and you can never fully trust your footing no matter how solid it seems in the moment. There are days now when I look at my son, during the rare moments when I see him from a distance in town, or catch a glimpse of him driving past, and I feel terrible crushing guilt that makes it hard to breathe. Days when I wonder if I destroyed an innocent man who was only trying to help his confused mother, who was researching care facilities because he genuinely thought I needed more support than I was getting, who was overwhelmed and scared and doing his imperfect best in an impossible situation. Days when I think about him recovering in that hospital, confused and drugged and being told by nurses and doctors that his own mother poisoned him, and I want to take it all back, undo what I did, beg his forgiveness. But then I find another note in my handwriting detailing the pills I found, describing where they were hidden in his sock drawer, listing the imprint numbers I looked up, documenting the dates I noticed him talking to my doctors without including me in the conversation. And I think maybe I was right after all. Maybe I really did save myself from someone who wanted to steal everything from me. Maybe my clear moments saw truth, my confused moments doubt. Or maybe I wrote those notes during episodes of paranoid delusion, and they prove nothing except that I cannot trust my own mind, even when it feels most trustworthy. The uncertainty is maddening in ways that someone with a reliable memory can never fully understand. You take for granted that you know what you did and why. I have no such luxury. There are days now when I look at my son and feel terrible guilt. Days when I wonder if I destroyed an innocent man who was only trying to help me. But then I find another note in my handwriting detailing the pills I found, describing where they were hidden, listing the imprint numbers. And I think maybe I was right. Maybe I saved myself. Maybe he really was trying to steal my life. Or maybe I wrote those notes during an episode of paranoid delusion, and they prove nothing except that I cannot trust my own mind. He does not visit anymore. The restraining order forbids it, but I think he would stay away regardless. I hurt him, or he hurt me, or we hurt each other, and there is no repairing what broke between us in that courtroom. I am alone now in my house full of notes to myself, reminders of what I have done and who I am, and what I must not forget. Some days I read them and pieced together a narrative that makes sense. Other days they are just words written by a stranger. I want to tell you that I know the truth. I want to wrap this story in certainty and give you a clear villain and a triumphant hero. But I cannot, because I am living inside Alzheimer's disease, and the essential feature of this condition is that you cannot trust your own mind. What I can tell you is that I chose to fight, rather than surrender. I chose to believe myself when the world told me not to. I chose autonomy over safety, risk over control, and whether that was wise or reckless or somewhere in between, it was my choice to make, and I would make it again. If you have stayed with me through this entire story, if you have listened to my confusion and my certainty and my terrible doubt, then I need to ask something of you. I need you to comment below and tell me I am not alone in this. Tell me you understand what it is like to fight battles where the enemy might be real or might be your own failing mind. Tell me you know what it means to make impossible choices with incomplete information. Write this in the comments so others can see it and know they are not alone either. Write, I choose to believe myself. Write it for me and for you and for everyone who has ever been told they cannot trust their own reality. Let us build a community of people who refuse to disappear quietly, who insist on being heard even when our voices shake, who demand dignity even in our decline. Before I finish, before I let you go, I need you to do one more thing. I need you to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because I will keep telling these stories as long as I can remember how. Stories about the reality of living with Alzheimer's, about the complexity of family, about the fights we wage to maintain our humanity when our minds are betraying us. When you subscribe, you are telling me that these stories matter. You are telling me that I matter. You are telling everyone watching that we are still here, still valuable, still deserving of being heard. This is not just a channel. It is a community of people who refuse to be invisible, who refuse to accept that a diagnosis means we lose our right to be believed and respected and trusted. Join us. Stay with us. Let us walk this difficult path together. I still live in my house. I still have good days and bad days. I still write notes to myself and wonder which version of me is telling the truth. My son is somewhere living his own life, carrying his own story of what happened, probably very different from mine. Maybe he tells people his mother is mentally ill and dangerous. Maybe he tells people she poisoned him out of paranoid delusion. Maybe he tells people he was trying to help and she destroyed him for it. And maybe all of that is true from where he stands. I do not know. I cannot know. All I know is my own fractured truth, stitched together from notes and memories and gaps where memories should be. What I want you to take from this, what I need you to understand, is that Alzheimer's does not make you a non-person. It makes you a person living in difficult circumstances, fighting to maintain yourself against an enemy you cannot see or predict or defeat. It means some days you are sharp and capable, and other days you are lost and frightened. It means you need help, but you also need agency. It means the people around you have to hold both truths simultaneously, that you are vulnerable and that you are still you. And when they cannot hold both, when they choose to see only the vulnerability and use it against you, then you have to fight. Even if you are not sure you are right, even if you might be wrong, even if the fight itself might be a delusion, you fight anyway, because surrendering means disappearing, and you are not ready to disappear yet. There are moments when I look at the pill bottle I took from my son's room, the one I keep hidden in my closet as evidence or insurance or proof that I am not crazy, and I wonder if it is really the same bottle I found, or if I bought it myself during a confused spell and invented the whole narrative. There are moments when I read my notes and cannot recognize my own handwriting and wonder if someone else wrote them, if my son planted them to make me think I was saving myself when really I was just confused. The disease has stolen my certainty, but it has not stolen my will, and maybe that is enough. Maybe choosing to believe in your own agency, even when you cannot prove your own competence, is its own form of resistance. I think about other people living with this diagnosis. I think about how many of them are fighting battles no one sees, making choices no one credits them with, resisting in ways that look like confusion, but are actually survival. I think about how many of them have families who love them, but also see them as problems to be managed rather than people to be respected. And I think about how this channel, these videos, these stories we share, might be the only place where someone says, yes, I see you, I believe you, your experience is valid, even when your mind is not reliable. That matters. That might be the most important thing. So let me say it clearly now. I believe you. Whatever you are experiencing, whatever impossible situation you are navigating, whatever choices you are making with the limited capacity you have, I believe you are doing your best. I believe you deserve respect and dignity. I believe you have the right to make your own decisions for as long as you possibly can. I believe that needing help does not mean you lose your voice. And I believe that even in our most confused moments, we are still valuable, still human, still deserving of love that protects rather than controls. The truth is, I may never know what really happened in my kitchen that morning. I may never know if I saved myself from a real threat, or if I harmed my son in a paranoid episode. The notes I wrote to myself are both evidence and potentially delusion. The pills I found are both proof of conspiracy and possibly something I planted myself. My memory cannot be trusted, but it is all I have, and so I choose to trust it anyway. I choose to believe that when I was clear, I was truly clear. I choose to believe I protected myself. I choose to believe I did what I had to do. And whether that makes me a survivor or makes me dangerous, I cannot say. But I can say that I am still here, still fighting, still insisting on my right to exist in my own home on my own terms for as long as possible. If this story has moved you, if it has made you think or feel or question, then please share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Post it in communities where people are struggling with similar battles. Let it be a reminder that those of us living with Alzheimer's are not simple victims of a disease, but complex human beings navigating impossible circumstances with whatever tools we have left. We make mistakes. We get confused. We sometimes cannot tell what is real. But we are still here, and our stories still matter, and our choices still deserve to be respected, even when they are not perfect. I do not know how much longer I have before the disease takes more than it already has. I do not know how many more clear days I will get. I do not know if future me will read this and recognize it, or if I will have forgotten entirely that I ever told this story. But right now, in this moment, I am Margaret. I am 78 years old. I have Alzheimer's disease, and I fought for my right to choose my own path, even when that fight might have been against shadows, even when I might have been wrong, even when the truth is something I will never fully know. And I would do it all again, because the alternative was surrendering without trying, and I am not ready to surrender yet. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for staying with me through all the uncertainty and confusion and doubt. Thank you for being part of this community where we tell the truth about what this disease really looks like. Not the sanitized version where everyone is noble and everything makes sense, but the messy, complicated version where we do our best, and sometimes our best is strange, and sometimes we cannot even be sure what our best was. Keep watching, keep subscribing, keep commenting, keep showing up for yourself and for each other. We need each other in this fight. And the fight is not over as long as we are still here telling our stories.